Pakistani leaders presented a list of Taliban representatives willing to negotiate with Afghanistan at a meeting in Islamabad on Monday. It's the latest attempt by Pakistan, Afghanistan, China and the United States to renew peace talks with the Taliban. Just last week, the Pakistani army carried out airstrikes in the northwest region in a major offensive against extremist groups. Pakistan also pledged its support to Saudi Arabia and its initiative to form a military coalition of 34 countries to fight terrorism. We begin now with CCTV's Danial Khan in Islamabad. And Daniel, the Pakistanis have been trying to neutralize groups associated with the Pakistani Taliban. How successful have they been?
Well, Anand, according to the Pakistan Army, more than 90% of North Waziristan, northwestern Pakistan's restive region has been cleared off from militants. And there are already two offensives currently underway, Operation Zarb-e-Azb and the Khyber operation. And the army believes that the militants have been hit hard at their strongholds. But defense experts say that the problem is that militants escape to neighboring Afghanistan, and Pakistan has repeatedly stressed the need of reinforcing the border security force in Afghanistan so that militants cannot escape. And then we have an issue of illegal Afghan refugees living inside Pakistan. They have acquired false identity cards, and though authorities have cracked down on their camps a number of times and caught suspected militants, but the issue remains. So what experts say that until the border issue is solved, this cat and mouse game will continue.
And I guess, Daniel, that would require the cooperation of regional leaders. We know that leaders from Pakistan, Afghanistan, China and the US have met in Islamabad on Monday. That's an effort to revive the peace process with the Taliban. Was any progress made there?
Well, yes, this meeting was mainly to devise a roadmap to engage the Taliban and bring them to the negotiating table. And Pakistan has reportedly produced a list of the Taliban that are willing to negotiate. But you see, this is the main issue. There are so many factions within the Taliban and so many groups and splinter groups with their own leaders and their own views that are getting all of them on the same page will take time, patience and a lot of persistence. But what is important is that the plan has been laid and the first step has been taken.
Now, Daniel, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with the Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif in late December. The two countries have had an adversarial relationship. Did this meeting change any of that?
Well, Anand, it wasn't an announced visit of Prime Minister Modi to Pakistan, and therefore there are mixed reactions among observers here in Pakistan, where some take it as a step in the right direction and an effort from both the Prime Ministers to strengthen ties and calm angers down. Others say it was a private visit and that they criticized Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, saying that he invited Prime Minister Modi to attend his granddaughter's wedding. Now, resumption of talks is a positive sign, but then we need to see if both the countries are willing to talk on the main issues. And for Pakistan, that main issue is of Kashmir. Then we also know that following Prime Minister Modi's visit, there was an attack at an Indian air base, and following that, blame game began with India providing no such evidence that Pakistan was involved in that attack. But yes, even after this meeting, things may have inched forward, but mostly remain the same, though we know that there is an expectation of a foreign secretary level meeting in the coming days between the two countries.
All right, thanks, Daniel. That's CCTV's Danial Khan reporting from Islamabad. For more analysis, we're joined from Boston by Adil Najam. He's the inaugural Dean of the Pardee School of Global Studies at Boston University. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
As we just heard from our correspondent, talks between India and Pakistan will resume later this week. They resume at a very senior level, at foreign minister level. What do you expect to come out of these talks?
No great fireworks, no great breakthroughs, but that is good. What I hope will come out is a decision, an agreement, a real heartfelt sense that these talks will keep moving, an agenda for further talks. And what I mean by that is I would much rather see small, stable steps between the two countries than this false desire for one meeting to solve problems that haven't been solved in 7 decades.
Now, Pakistan has been hitting Taliban targets in North Waziristan. This is a very remote area. We don't know much about what has been going on there because journalists are off limits in that area. Can we tell with any degree of certainty who's gaining the upper hand there?
At this time, it does seem, certainly there's a sense in Pakistan that the Pakistan offensive against the Taliban has probably been the most serious that it has been at probably any time since 9/11. And in Pakistan, there is this sense that the Pakistan military is gaining a upper hand, and the best evidence of that is that the last year, 2015, that just ended, actually had far, far less incidences of terrorism and death in Pakistan by terrorists than any of the preceding years in recent years. So there is a sense that there's a momentum, and the momentum is on Pakistan's side right now against the Taliban.
How big a threat does the Taliban, or should I say groups that are affiliated with the Taliban, what kind of threat do they pose to stability in Pakistan?
A huge threat, and I think you are right in pointing out that it's no longer just the Taliban. There is, especially with the rise of ISIS, there is a lot of concern that groups affiliated with ISIS might start coming up. But there's a great threat at any given point, and in some ways, the success of recent efforts against them also makes that threat a little more pronounced in the sense that as you make life for them difficult in their strongholds, there is an urge to go and do these dramatic terrorist attacks, not just in Pakistan, but in region around it, including in India, as a way of spoiling the whole balance that exists in the region.
There is one group that we hear about quite a bit, and that is known as the Haqqani Network. And it seems to be a group whose influence is not just confined to Pakistan. They seem to have influence in Afghanistan as well, of course, Afghanistan being a neighbor of Pakistan. What do we know about this group, and what do we know about its strength?
Between Afghanistan and Pakistan, there is this very unhealthy sort of relationship which the Taliban have used to their advantage. And what that means is that there are Taliban groups on the Afghanistan side that tend to then, because the border is very porous, come into the Pakistan side to do many of their terrorist attacks and work there, and then run back into Afghanistan. And the same happens on the Pakistan side, including with the Haqqani group, where there are strongholds of the Taliban who sort of are on the Pakistan side of that porous border, who will be doing a lot of action in Afghanistan. And the two countries haven't really come to a good working relationship on dealing with this, because partly they are so busy in dealing with their own side. And that has just messed up the situation very much on both sides of that border. And the Haqqani group, as you mentioned, is one of the prime of those groups, and these are multiple groups that operate possibly from the Pakistan side.
So what that tells us then is that any kind of resolution of this problem of militancy in Pakistan will require a comprehensive settlement with its neighbors as well.
I think it will. And I think what it will require is for Afghanistan and Pakistan in particular to come together to deal with Taliban groups on both sides of that border and an end to the sort of finger-pointing blame game. And on that, we have had some good news to start the year off with, including the agreement for the major powers in the region, and that means not just Afghanistan and Pakistan, but the United States and China, to start working closer together. I think that is the type of comprehensive solution that will be required, which looks not simply as the old finger-pointing game of which side of a line that doesn't work very well someone is residing, but puts the major players together to say we need to deal with this whole thing as one big problem.
What kind of efforts is the Pakistani government making to extend its influence in those remote tribal areas, or to put it another way, to win the battle for the hearts and minds of people who live there?
Yes, it is about winning the hearts and minds, but it is also about just bringing governance into that region and really bringing that region back into Pakistan in a fully functional sovereign way. The area we are talking about is called FATA, the Federally Administered Tribal Area, and that says what it is. It is tribal. It is not fully in the folds of the country in a governance sense, and that is why it's federally administered, but it's really not very much administered. And that has become now Pakistan's dilemma, because it's become this kind of Wild West, which provides easy home to these nefarious groups that attack not just Pakistan, but also sometimes use it to attack their neighbors, which impacts Pakistan's relationship with those neighbors. The government seems to have realized this, but more importantly, the military has realized that you can't really have this border area be left to this arrangement where the state doesn't control it. But it goes back historically, and it's not going to be an easy task. I think the governance part, that is bringing the area into the folds of the country, is as important as the military part, which is the military operation against the Taliban.
How has the violence and, of course, the battle against the Taliban militants who carry out this violence, how has that affected the economy of the country?
It has affected it massively. There are all sorts of estimates with large numbers. They vary, but all the numbers are large. But it has also affected the confidence of the international investors. Not just the investor, people are worried about traveling to Pakistan, and that has very, very severe implications and costs for the economy, for the society. And that realization has started seeping in, both into the business community, but also in society in general. And I think that has given a added impetus to the government and the military to take these operations more seriously.